In today's video, I'm going to show you around system preferences, or at least part of it. We'll start today with personal, which is the top line of system preferences, as you can see, and then in the next video we'll look at hardware, internet and wireless system, and the little line at the bottom which has got lots of other bits and pieces in it. Starting in the top left with general, if you click on that, you'll see that the top part of that is mainly to do with how your Mac looks, how the screen looks. You probably won't want to change too much about that. There isn't a lot of choice there, as you can see. You can change the highlight colour when you mouse over text and click on it, what colour it turns, but you really wouldn't want to mess too much with that, I wouldn't have thought. In the next region, there are a few things that are a bit more interesting, particularly if you've used an operating system, a Mac operating system, prior to Lion. There are one or two things in here which will put things back the way that you might expect them to work if you've used Leopard or Snow Leopard, for example. The show scroll bars section, one of the things that Lion does is in Windows, when you've got a window open, the scroll bars disappear until you actually start scrolling. So if you've got a magic mouse, for example, and if you move your finger over the top of the mouse to scroll, then you'll notice on the right hand side of the window that the scroll bar appears and then disappears when you stop scrolling. That's fine if you only ever use a magic mouse or a trackpad to scroll, but if you're used to grabbing the scroll bars and moving them up and down to scroll, it can be a bit frustrating because you just don't know where to click. So you've got two options to change that. You can show the scroll bars as they are at the moment, automatically based on the input device. You can show them when you start to scroll, or probably most usefully, you can show them all the time, which means that you know exactly where to grab when you want to scroll up and down. Next, it's what happens when you click in the scroll bar. You can make it jump to the next page as it's set to do at the default, or you can make it jump to the spot that's clicked, which is the way most people are used to working. You can use smooth scrolling, which is probably what you want to keep it at. And then, if you want to double click a Windows title bar to minimize, there's an option there for that. That's something that used to be called window shade prior to OS 10. If you've been using the Mac a long time, you remember that. And it's something that a lot of people got used to doing, just double clicking a window to minimize, so that option is there if you want to do that. Sidebar icon size medium, you can leave that set at that, it's probably fairly reasonable. Below that is some options that you've probably got no real reason to want to change unless you particularly need to have more than 10 applications, documents or servers showing in your recent items list. And then below that there is one thing that you might want to change: restore windows when quitting and reopening apps. That's a new behaviour in Lion. It's great if, for example, you used to just shutting down an app and forgetting to save stuff. Autosave in Lion now takes care of that, and it get you starting working very quickly. But if you have a lot of windows open, a lot of documents open, obviously it can slow down the time it takes to reopen an application. And there are times that you might not want to open every document you've had open in a previous session. So if you don't want to do that and you'd rather just open documents manually, just unclick that. Below that, LCD font smoothing when available. Most of the time, again, you probably want to have that checked unless you have a particular problem reading smooth fonts. If you'd rather they were sharper than fuzzier and smoother, then unclick that. Obviously, turn off text smoothing for font sizes. You can, as an alternative to unchecking use LCD font smoothing, you can increase the size at which font smoothing is turned off. So if you say have a problem with 10-point text when it's too fuzzy, then you can change the minimum size to 12 point. And that is the general panel and system preferences. Next is desktop and screensaver, which is fairly self-explanatory. You can change your screensaver to whatever you like here. If you want to choose your own picture, use the folders one there. If you want to add a folder to it, just click that plus button there. You can change the picture every 30 minutes or even more often if you prefer. Don't want to do that, don't like that one at all. I'm going to go back to that one, which is much nicer. Change the screensaver here if you want. Various ones to choose from. I'm not going to go through them all because some of them are pretty hideous. Change the behaviour of the dock. Now that hasn't always been in system preferences, that used to be in the Apple menu, but it's now in system preferences. Change the size of the dock. Changes magnification when you mouse over things. So switch on magnification and you can see that that's pretty garish. So if you want the magnification but don't want it as big as that, then it's almost not noticeable at the middle settings, so you might want to drag it up a bit. That's reasonable. and you can put the dock still left, bottom or right. I prefer it on the bottom, so I'm going to leave it there. Minimises windows using scale effect or genie effect. I think the genie effect's horrible, don't like it. I'll show you that. So I leave it switched off. The scale effect, which just does that, which I think is much nicer. The bottom ones are fairly self-explanatory. Minimise windows into an application icon. I quite like seeing a preview of the window in the dock, so I leave that unchecked. Animate opening applications. If you like the bouncing application icon in the dock, leave that on. Automatically hide and show the dock, yes, because I like it, because it gives me more screen space. And show indicate lights for open applications. Again, I find that handy, so I leave that checked on. Mission control. This is possibly the best thing, or one of the best things about Lion. It's not always easy to find your way around though. Show dashboard as a space. If you use dashboard, if you use some of the widgets in dashboard, that's useful. Automatically rearrange spaces based on most recent use. Again, very useful if you're toggling between two different spaces to do work in each. Then you don't need to move a long way across the screen to select a space, so that can be useful. To switch to an application, switch to space with open windows for the application. Yeah, I like doing that, so I leave that on, but you might want to do things differently. And here's where you set the keystrokes for mission control and the rest. I leave them as they are because I like it that way and I'm used to working that way, but if you prefer different keystrokes, then you can do it yourself. Language and text, again, you probably just want to leave these set to the defaults unless you have specific needs. What I'm going to do is, sometimes that pops on by itself for some reason, keyboard and character view, so that's where you switch it off if you need to, which can be handy to know. Security and privacy, this is where you set up your firewall if you need to make specific settings for it. You can lock your screensaver by clicking that, I don't bother. And you can set security settings for each of your accounts. I always have automatic login disabled so that everybody has to log in separately, but you might only have one account and want it to log in automatically, so you can do that. File vault is where you encrypt files if you want to encrypt them when you use them. It can make your Mac slow down quite significantly, so I don't turn it on. Alright, firewall's on by default, you can switch it off, but again, there's no real reason to switch it off unless you're having serious problems with something not working on your network. However, you might want to access the advanced settings, and if you have applications that need, I don't know why that's blocked actually, that's bizarre, that are having trouble running, for example, iTV on the iPad, which needs to access the main Mac to read its TV, sometimes has trouble if you don't manually add it and allow incoming connections. Same with iConnect, which is a UPnP server, that sometimes needs to be manually added to allow you to make it work properly. I haven't got enabled stealth mode checked there because it causes problems with iTV and iConnect, but if you're not using those, I would have that switched on by default normally. Nothing there that you need to see. Spotlight, again, this is, you can change the order in which results appear. Don't know why you want to change that, to be honest, that's no big deal. And in there you can stop Spotlight from indexing certain volumes. I've got a couple of big volumes in there that have got a lot of big files in them that I don't want indexed, so I have them added to my list. And finally, universal access. If you've got special needs, if you're hard of hearing or have sight problems, then you can access here. You can turn VoiceOver on and access the VoiceOver utility. You can zoom to text, you can change the display so it's easier for you to see, and again with flash the screen when alert sound occurs rather than just hear it. Obviously if you've got problems hearing, then that might be quite useful. And play stereo audio as mono, which again might be useful if you have problems with the keyboard and mouse. You can access special settings there. That is the top line of system preferences.